Puerto Rico is bankrupt.
All political parties on the island and their administrations have contributed also to the economic downfall with mismanagement, poor budget decisions, taking out loans on the island that with no expectation to be repaid.
Began borrowing very heavily around 2006 because they had lost some tax credits from the U.S. Congress that allowed them to have a very strong economy. But when the economy slowed down and it got weak, the government started borrowing a lot of money to spend to help the people and to help the economy. And the economy never picked up, but the borrowing kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So now they have this huge pile of debt, which is very difficult to repay, and the economy still is pretty weak.
Just to clarify, Puerto Rico actually isn't bankrupt as of now officially according to U.S. bankruptcy code, but it is at a state where most people consider it to be insolvent, or can't officially pay its bills or can't afford to pay its upcoming bills.
Like Puerto Rico, Guam is technically broke. We have a $120 to $180 million deficit. We don't know for sure and won't know until the books are finally closed and the audit's completed. But what we do know right now is, like Puerto Rico, government of Guam is having trouble paying its bills. We just recently borrowed $45 million to pay $20 million in arrears for Guam Memorial Hospital. And we're so confident of our inability to run the hospital correctly, we borrowed an additional $15 million to pay the arrears for 2017. We also borrowed the Children's Trust Fund to make payroll a couple of months ago. And many of government of Guam's departments and agencies are behind in paying their bills. We see stories in the newspaper and the media from time to time these last couple of months, and we're looking at the fact that Department of Education, Guam Community College, and University of Guam and Department of Education still haven't got their full allotments from 2016, which is causing them to delay payment to their vendors, which is going to cause their vendors to make delayed payments to their vendors. So we hear a lot of people comparing Guam to Puerto Rico, but how did Puerto Rico get into trouble in the first place?
The government of Puerto Rico sold bonds to American investors for decades. Governments, just like households, picked up the debt. To cover their expenses, this debt was divided into many small pieces called bonds. The bonds were then sold to financial markets, where in turn, investors bought them. Puerto Rico had an eager group of buyers because of a special advantage that it had. Puerto Rico's bonds had a triple tax exemption. This meant that bondholders of Puerto Rico's bonds did not pay federal, state, and local taxes. And so Puerto Rico kept issuing new debt, and investors kept buying. The year 2006. That is when the federal tax break for corporate income expired. This prompted many businesses to leave, but the damage was done already. The island of less than 4 million people had accumulated a $70 billion debt. That was a debt per capita of up to $10,600, 10 times the median for U.S. states. Puerto Rico kept issuing new debt to pay for the old debts, and ratings agencies gave the island good ratings.
Now remember that. Puerto Rico's debt level going into 2014 was $10,600. Going into 2014, the per-person debt level here on Guam was $9,051 at the beginning of the 33rd legislature. So, where are we today? Well, with all the bills, the borrowing bills that have been passed by the 33rd legislature, our debt has risen to $13,583, which is an increase of $4,532 by my count. That's a 50% increase in 2 years. So, where do we go from here?
do you remember with the tax refunds, the first instance in 2010? Everybody was against it. The editorials were against it. The talk show hosts were against it. The Democrats were blasting away. But because of my Republican compadres in the legislature, working together with the Republican administration, we pulled that refund bills through. And now we're back at, rather than 5 or 6 years as a past, 5 months. But the original plan was for days. And thank you, Brent McCready. Thank you, Tony Ada. Thank you, Chris Duenas. Thank you, Tommy Morrison. Thank you, Frank Blas. Because with this new plan that we have worked together to move through this Democratic majority, to get the tax refunds in days.
Now, I personally don't understand why all of a sudden the governor is very concerned about paying tax refund in a matter of days instead of a matter of months, when he spent 2 years and millions of dollars of taxpayer money fighting in federal court the mandatory deadline for payment.
Whatever you've seen the progress these last 6 years, you ain't seen nothing yet. Yeah. Nothing yet.
And that's what worries me. It worries me because we still have 2 months left in this year. We still have $600 million in bond bills sitting in the legislature, and we have the governor and the Republicans pushing hard with help of certain Democrats to get those bills passed before the end of the 33rd legislature. Starting with Bill 338. Which was a bill to borrow somewhere between $140 and $170 million to renovate Guam Memorial Hospital. That bill will add $1,100 to the per-person debt load for every man, woman, and child on Guam. And then this one right here, which I encourage every citizen to be on the alert for and watch very carefully, is Bill 363. Dennis Rodriguez wants to legalize waste to energy so that the contract the governor has already signed with GRRP, the settlement agreement that he signed with GRRP, can move forward to the funding stage, in which the senators will attempt to pass a $350 million bond guaranteed by you and me, voters and taxpayers, and giving $350 million to a company that has never designed, built, or operated a waste energy plant to design, build, and operate a waste energy plant. And that's not the only problem on the floor of the legislature. Simon Sanchez, there's a problem with the bill authorizing funding for Simon Sanchez. It doesn't have a cap limit. The Speaker has acknowledged it, and the contractors have discussed ways to exploit it. I have requested the Speaker and the legislature to close the gaps, to close the loopholes, because I'm worried about that. If you thought Guam YTK was bad, this could be 10 times worse for taxpayers. But for some reason, the Speaker refuses to close the loophole. So I introduced legislation myself. It is now before the Attorney General's office to close the loophole. If she won't, we should. And that's why I introduced a bill. Which brings us to the tax refund bill. Now, the problem with this bill, and there's several, but the biggest problem is we're going to borrow $100 million to pay the 2016 tax refunds a few months early. Now, with the government almost $200 million in debt, we know there's no way the government is going to be able to replenish that fund. So what's going to happen is we're going to pay tax refunds a little early, and then we're going to end up owing $175 million to be paid over the next 31 years, And then in 2018, we'll have to borrow another $100 million to pay the 2017 tax. That is a strategy right out of the Puerto Rico Playbook. So, what kind of financial management are we seeing coming out of government in Guam right now? Well, take a look at the health care bill, and that gives you an idea. Decisions like this are right in line with the Puerto Rico Playbook, and no doubt in my mind, if we keep making decisions like this, by the end of 2 years from now, our financial house of cards will collapse. The president will be appointing a new board to manage the financial affairs of government of Guam, but it'll be the next governor's problem, not Governor Calvert's problem. So, recap our debt level. We're at 13,000 change now. GMH renovation bill adds 1,100 to that. The waste energy bill adds 3,828 to that. The Simon Sanchez adds 1,750 or more to that. And the tax refund bill adds $1,094 to that debt load, bringing the total up to $21,355. Now this number is significant. Just think, by the end of the 33rd legislature, we could see a 136% increase in the debt load for every man, woman, and child on Guam if all those bills get passed or signed into law. Now the reason this is significant is Puerto Rico's per-person debt load was $15,600 at the time President Obama appointed 7 federal financial managers to oversee financial operations for the government of Puerto Rico. And now, as those managers are taking over control of the financial operations of all the different branches of government in Puerto Rico, I bring up this point right here. One of the reasons Puerto Rico got into trouble is in their Commonwealth Constitution, they have a clause that was inserted that makes paying bond debt a priority over government operations. We don't have that on Guam. Well, at least we don't now. But Senator McCready and Governor Calvo are very concerned that we are lacking one of the key ingredients that pushed Puerto Rico over the financial cliff, so they've incorporated a poison pill, what I call the Puerto Rico poison pill, into the tax refund legislation. And here it is right here. With this line, it makes paying bond debt, puts a lien on the bond debt, so that we have to pay the bonds first before we pay any other priorities of the government out of the business privilege tax revenues. And that's kind of what happened that drove Puerto Rico over the cliff. And let's see what effect the poison pill is having in Puerto Rico.
But so-called vulture funds are companies that buy up debt at rock-bottom prices, then demand payments much higher than the original amount of the debt.
But the vulture funds don't want to negotiate. Instead, they want Puerto Rico to fire teachers, close neighborhood schools, and cut support for the University of Puerto Rico so that these vulture funds can squeeze out more profits.
Cuando nosotros nos enteramos que la escuela había cerrado, fue algo bien difícil, especialmente para ella. Por la mañana es difícil que ella entre cuando no la va a dejar a la escuela. Ha sido un proceso bien difícil, o sea, casi un año que ni para mis hijos ha sido fácil, ni para mí. Y sé que muchos padres también, que los niños están pasando por procesos de ansiedad, de niños que han bajado sus notas. Esto no es justo, o sea, estas escuelas jamás debieron cerrar. Yo no cogí prestado. Yo no creé la deuda. ¿Por qué tengo que pagar yo?
It's not a pretty picture. It's not Guam's picture yet, but it could be Guam's picture, our future, if we re-elect the Gang of Eight. Because the Gang of Eight are bound and determined to pile on as much debt as possible. I'm even worried that they might try to do it during a lame duck session. So, we vote the Gang of Eight out. What do we do next? I say we elect new senators. And here's the list. My recommendations for the 34th legislature. If you look at the names highlighted in yellow, these are new candidates. And the list is on our Facebook page, it's on our website page, and I will be running the ads in the newspaper as well. But here is the list of new candidates that I recommend to replace the Gang of Eight. Because with these new candidates, we have a chance of having a brighter future for our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren than we do if we re-elect the Gang of Eight. So that's why I'm saying this election, we don't have to follow the fate of Puerto Rico and go over the financial cliff. By electing 8 new candidates to replace the Gang of Eight, we have a chance to have a brighter future. And for those of you who are concerned about electing new candidates, remember, every one of the Gang of Eight was a new candidate at one time. It's just that they've lost their focus. They're more concerned about their own financial security than they are the people of Guam. And they proved that with the pay raises and everything that's happened since. After all, we've had a 50% increase in debt as a result of their actions. So, for those of you concerned about voting for new candidates, I encourage you to go to the website and look at the videos, the interviews that we have of the new candidates, so that you can see for yourself the dedication they had to public service before they ever considered running for the legislature. And I encourage all of you to come out to Micronesian Mall Monday afternoon. And Monday afternoon, we're going to be joining forces with Guamanians for Fair Government and have a wave. We're encouraging all the people to come out and show support for the people, because the Gang of Eight certainly isn't showing their support for the people. So let's show the people, and let's show the candidates in the legislature, both incumbents and new, that the people of Guam are concerned and watching their actions. So come to the mall Monday between 4:30 and 6, or whatever time you can spend, and let's send a message to encourage the members of the 34th Guam legislature to start out on the right foot, and that is to take care of the people of Guam. That's what we elect them to do. I'm Ken Leon-Guerrero, spokesperson for Guam Citizens for Public Accountability. And I look forward to seeing you at the wave, and I encourage each and every one of you to get in there and vote. Thank you.